poslijepodne kako će da bude.
Dear friends, colleagues, guests, ambassadors, thank you for joining us for this event that has been traditionally organized since 2017 in coordination cooperation between European Policy Center, a think tank I work for, and the EU delegation to Serbia. My name is Strahinja Subotić, and for today I will be moderating this highly anticipated debate and discussion on the results of the outgoing Danish presidency and the upcoming priorities of the incoming Cyprus presidency. As you all know, there have been a lot of enlargement developments in the past 6 months. So it is quite a pleasure to see high turnout and high interest from the audience in particular, given that there are so many embassies today, which is our utmost pleasure. I should also note that this is our 18th time that we focus on presidency handover. But this time around, I have a feeling that the semester has been quite demanding, quite in a way even exhausting for all of us. So I'm quite sure that given how much enlargement has been accelerating in the past months, I'm quite sure that this event will be very memorable and I hope very interesting and useful to you as well. I should note that the event will last for around 90 minutes and that it will be recorded. If you need the recording, it will be available on YouTube once the event is over. For today, I have the pleasure to introduce highly esteemed guests. On my left side, we have Milena Mihajlović Denić, who is heading European Policy Center as Program Director. Then we have Andreas van Bekkerath, EU Ambassador. Thank you both. Then we have, for the second time with us, Ambassador Kardel from Danish Embassy. Thank you very much for joining us. Then we have the Cypriot Ambassador, and I hope I'm pronouncing well, Fotiu. For the first time, thank you very much for joining us. And last but not least, we have Bojana Selaković, Head of the National Convention on EU. Thank you once again for joining us. As we have started 15 minutes later, expect please that the event will again end with a 15-minute delay. So without further ado, I would like to start with the first question that is aimed to EU Ambassador. It's a bit surprising to me, but this is the first time we have actually met. So it is my utmost pleasure. I know how busy you must have been throughout the past months. I should note that you're actually our third ambassador that we are hosting. And each and every time we were glad that the EU delegation was so responsive that they have supported this now a very popular event that has become a brand of sorts. So with that in mind, I'm quite curious to know what were you expecting before you were coming to Serbia, and what have you actually seen on the ground? We all know that typically when new EU ambassadors are assuming their position, they're full of optimism, full of energy. But given the ongoing developments, the negative reaction from our government to enlargement report, and the fact that our president has decided to decline the invitation to attend the EU Western Balkan Summit, I'm quite curious to learn about your views on those developments and to see how do you plan to overcome those obstacles to really make sure that enlargement works, even in the case of Serbia. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in this distinguished panel. Not often that I'm in a panel with one more Andreas as well, so I'm particularly thankful for that. Yeah. In terms of your question, what I expected before coming here, well, to be perfectly frank, I expected, arriving into a very wonderful country with very friendly people, wonderful food, the best basketball in Europe, but I also expected a quite dynamic and cumbersome work, and I think I have not been disappointed on any of those things. When it comes to the last few months and weeks development, I think it has been once again demonstrated how important enlargement is for the European Union. I mean, only this week we have seen in the General Affairs Council conclusions adopted by the Presidency the very clear commitment to enlargement. We've also seen the same wording in the European Council conclusions yesterday. And we saw Western Balkan EU summit on Wednesday, where, as you said, unfortunately, Serbia's chair was empty. I think personally that was a missed opportunity. I think the enlargement process is very much based on dialogue and meeting each other. And if there are problems, misunderstandings, they need to be ironed out in discussions. So I think it was unfortunate that Serbia was not present at the Western Balkan Summit. We have seen this week Montenegro closing 5 chapters. They have now closed 12 chapters. We have seen Albania opening all of their clusters. And I think this really demonstrates how much can it be achieved when political will and reform delivery aligns. When it comes to Serbia, as you know, Cluster 3, there was no agreement among member states to open Cluster 3. They will revert to this issue next year based on what Serbia can deliver in terms of reforms when it comes to not least rule of law and normalization of relations with Kosovo. We had the annual report presented earlier this year, and I think the key sentence in the report was the fact that there has been a significant slowdown of reform, and basically across the board. I think the most important area to address is the rule of law. Rule of law, fight against corruption, making sure to ensure the independence of judiciary, and also to ensure the autonomy of prosecutorial services. I think these are really the key areas. We have also the discussion of Serbia reaching the interim benchmarks for Chapter 23 and 24. There is a lot of discussion about Cluster 3, but I think personally, I think that the benchmark on 23 and 24 are far more important for Serbia, for the Serbian people, but also in order to make sustainable progress on the accession path. Because as you know, in order to close chapters, Serbia needs to reach IBAR when it comes to these chapters. So I think there's not enough attention being devoted to Chapter 23 and 24. There has been some positive development. I think energy is one area. We've seen the decisions on gas unbundling, which is important. We are all following, obviously, the discussion on Nice and also Serbian efforts to diversify its gas import. After President von der Leyen's visit here to Belgrade, a working group was constituted between EU and Serbia. And we have clearly shown a strong commitment to supporting Serbia diversify away from Russian energy import. I mean, if there's one thing that has been abundantly clear in the last couple of weeks and months is that Russia is a completely unreliable energy provider. They use energy as a political instrument, and here the European Union can offer Serbia reliable energy delivery. And I hope that we will see some progress in this area as well. There has been some progress also when it comes to alignment with the common foreign and security policy. We need to see more, but there has been some progress there, and there has been some progress also when it comes to some of the economic chapters. But I certainly hope that 2026 will be a year where Serbia moves from committing to joining the European Union to translating that commitment into concrete and tangible reform progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think it's very well put that Cluster 3 debate has dominated the debate so much that many have forgotten about the interim benchmarks which need to be fulfilled. And you've talked about rule of law. But can you briefly also reflect on the fact that one of the panelists, for example, Bojana, has been unfortunately singled out by so many tabloids these days, and that this is just a symptom of a wider issue that is related to freedom of expression, work of civil society, and media in Serbia. Can you briefly just reflect on that as well?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about this, because this is something that really makes me upset. Because, I mean, first of all, in the progress report that was presented in November, one of the key features is to make sure to create an enabling environment for civil society. It's mentioned on numerous places in the report. And civil society plays absolutely instrumental role when it comes to the enlargement process. They are our most important partner when it comes to ensuring the quality of the accession process. And when the media and high-level officials accused civil society organization for sabotaging the accession process, when in fact they're raising very often quite well-founded criticism, it's slightly bizarre, I would say. I mean, civil society organizations, when they criticize some of the reform process, they're not sabotaging the accession process, they're ensuring the quality of the accession process. And for as long as I will have the privilege to be representing the European Union in Serbia, I will always defend civil society's important role in the enlargement process, because they will ensure the quality. And as we have said many times, the enlargement process needs to be a whole of society approach, including both opposition, civil society, and authorities. So I'm slightly worried about the recent attacks we've seen, both against Bojana and National Convent and also against Civic Initiative, which has played such a crucial role, and which are also in a very difficult position because they're being criticized from one side of some of their peers that believe that they should not engage at all with authorities because they are not credible and this does not lead to anything. And then simultaneously, they're criticized by the authorities themselves. And I really think that this needs to stop. And here, obviously, authorities has a special responsibility to ensure that there is, an atmosphere which allows for an inclusive dialogue and where we can work on these reforms together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We indeed appreciate the support for civil society the delegation has traditionally been providing, but I think it's become increasingly evident that the more the space shrinks, that your role will become all the more important, and there will be even a stronger necessity to speak out on these issues. So we thank you for that, and of course Bojana can reflect on this later on as well. I'd like to move to Danish ambassador. We all remember the last time you were here 6 months ago. It was quite a fruitful and interesting debate. And I recall you saying that this was 8th time Denmark was presiding over the council, but even more interestingly, 4th time you've been overseeing that Denmark's role of chairing the council. So my question to you is, how would you contrast and compare, based on your huge experience, how would you contrast and compare the developments and fulfillment of your priorities during this presidency with your previous experience and developments in the past? And I'm also curious, how did your activities as presidency fit with the title of this debate, making the EU fit for enlargement, while all keeping in mind about the necessity and Denmark's prioritization of enlargement as well, while at the same time being an EU ambassador here, where enlargement hasn't been delivering as much in the past. So thank you, you have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you for having me again. It's good to be back here. What I also said was that this was the first time that, you know, being Danish means that you are desperately well prepared. But when you do an EU presidency under the current circumstances, with the geopolitical situation being as it is, no matter how prepared you are being driven by everyday developments. And I think if we just think of, when we went to bed last night, we did not know whether we would succeed in among our leaders to find support for Ukraine. We woke up this morning and there had been found agreement, but in a different way than what we had thought when we went to bed. And this, I think, really is a good example of how the presidency have been. So we have gone to this presidency in a very humble manner because we knew that the conditions for success were very different from in the previous times we have had the presidency. And I think, the title of the Danish presidency has been about security and a stronger Europe in a time of transition, in a time where Europe is under an enormous amount of threat. And that has been really the threat through the presidency, that it has been about building a stronger Europe, and a stronger Europe is also a bigger Europe. I'll get back to that. But it has also been about enhancing Europe's defense capabilities, and there's quite a few things going on in that. I'm not going to get too much into that, but when you read of the results that have happened over the last few months, Europe has actually moved forward quite a bit on strengthening the defense industry and the capabilities of building up defense. We have also been working on Europe's competitiveness, and that has been about working with the European Parliament on getting some of the regulatory frameworks simplified so our industry could actually work better and have a more competitive environment to work in. And then I think it's also important to mention the green agenda. It's not often that we as Denmark would go into a presidency with something that is a national agenda, but we have been Europe's most ambitious green country, with our 70% reduction goal by 2030, that when that was actually put in place in 2020, we didn't know how to get there. That has then, the process, we're happy to talk about that in other contexts. But where we are now is the process we have put in place means that we will overperform on the 70% reduction goal by 2030. And therefore, of course, going into the EU presidency, it was really important. When you look at the world today, there are very few actors on the world stage who actually take the green agenda with them, who is remembering that climate change is actually also a threat to our societies. And we felt that unless we as an EU president got the EU with us to go to Brazil to COP30 with an ambitious agenda, COP30 was likely to be something where you would look at it and say, have we forgotten climate change? And what we succeeded in doing was actually getting the EU with us with ambitious goals so that we could go to Brazil. And I think you can always debate whether we got enough out of Brazil, but certainly the fight against climate change is still on and Europe takes the lead. And I'm very happy that we succeeded in doing that. Back to the enlargement, because this is of course what is the most important sitting right here. For us, and some of you can remember that a little more than a year ago, my Minister for European Affairs was in Belgrade, and she talked about that for us, the enlargement starts with Ukraine, but it doesn't stop with Ukraine. But the point is that unless we got Ukraine with us on the enlargement front, the enlargement for the rest of the candidate country was not likely to move forward. In other words, we needed to use Ukraine as the momentum. And then as the enlargement was moving on, we would be able to pull other countries into the process and with the process. And I think that's exactly what has happened. But of course, the decision overnight was very important. If Ukraine had gone bankrupt in a few months, the whole thing would have fallen apart. But the European leaders got together and actually found a way of ensuring funding for Ukraine for the coming 2 years. What also happened was that we have succeeded. And I think this is important. Europe is very often, or the EU is very often being criticized for we can only make decisions by consensus. And it is important that we get the EU with us when we do make big decisions. But I think we have proven that we have found ways, creative ways, where we can move forward even if we don't get everybody with us. We did that on climate change, but we have also done that on Ukraine. That we could not get one of our member states with us on actually formally moving forward on Ukraine's enlargement process. And what we then found agreement on with everybody else was we need to make that process then informal, so that when we eventually get the formal agreement, Ukraine is far into the process. And I think that says something about that when there is a direction, when there is a willingness, you can find creative ways of moving forward, even without being undermined by the few who may have a different view. So Ukraine has moved forward, but so have other countries. And I think, Andreas, I very much agree with you. It has been, when you've seen the 5 chapters that are provisionally closed by Montenegro, I'm also the ambassador, Danish ambassador to Montenegro, so that has been fun to work on that. That's really encouraging, not just for Montenegro, but because I think what we have tried to do throughout the presidency is to talk about that enlargement is back on. Because many questions were raised, and are still raised, but fewer, I would say, about whether enlargement is on. And I think what the EU has proven is that enlargement is on. The 5 chapters are closed. We are very close to establishing the ad hoc working party that will prepare the accession treaty for the new members. And we have opened all the clusters with Albania. And of course, what we hand over to Cyprus is making sure that all candidate countries come along. We are very much of the view that unless we get everybody with us, we are not where we need to be in creating that strong and united Europe that we need in this geopolitical situation that we are in. So it's really important to continue on, of course. I happen to disagree with the title of this event. I really don't think the issue is about making the EU ready. Of course, we need to make ourselves ready too, but the issue is to make sure that the candidate countries focus on reforms, day and night. Wake up in the middle of the night and say, what can I do to make reforms move on? And because unless that actually happens, it's not going to, we can do everything to prepare the EU, but it's not going to lead to EU enlargement. And I would like to just finish off echoing what Andreas was saying. Enlargement is obviously a process that is a whole of society process. And I think I very much agree also with your concern about the environment that is here. Looking forward, this country, with all its many partners, we need to be sure that Serbia starts that dialogue with itself and with us in a much more, with the purpose of actually making sure that we actually see results. Because unless that happens, if this process continues to be tainted by mud throwing against each other, progress will not happen. And we can't afford that because we have lots of actors out there. We are basically in the middle of a hybrid war. And we have actors out there who love to see that we don't succeed in actually moving the enlargement process forward as much as we want to. So we have a task together that we need to focus on, and that we hand over to Cyprus for the next 6 months, but we will be continuing and focusing on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, and congratulations for successfully concluding or about to conclude your presidency. And just a personal note, I remember being asked by the media whether and to what extent Denmark will really prioritize enlargement. And I think after these 6 months, nobody will have any doubt that enlargement has been a strong priority for Denmark, and we hope to be on your radar as much as we were during your presidency, even after your presidency. So thank you once again. And now moving to Cypriot Ambassador, thank you for joining us once again. It is a pleasure to open up, to have the opportunity or pleasure to give headway to your presidency here at this Europe House. I would like to build upon on what the Danish ambassador has just said. We've heard how successful Danish were throughout their presidency when it comes to pushing Western Balkans, in particular, let's say Montenegro, thanks to Ambassador Kartel, among others, but also Ukraine, pushing the technical negotiations with Ukraine and Moldova, but also achieving relevant milestones in the area of, for example, green agenda. So with that said, my question to you is, what will be your priorities as Cypriot presidency, and how do these priorities fit within the ongoing developments to make Europe more competitive, with more resilient to global challenges, but also, again, more fit for enlargement. And when I say fit for enlargement, I say in the context of the existing development of pre-enlargement reviews, the debates on the multi-annual financial framework, and some other topics when it comes to using accession acts as a way to produce some specificities for newcomers, just to ensure that no newcomer waits on the outside while the EU is still completing its internal reforms in the meantime. So you have the floor, and sorry if I was speaking for a bit too long.
Thank you very much. Allow me first to congratulate the Danish presidency and particularly Pernille for the very hard work and the excellent results achieved and setting the bar very high for us. So we will assume the presidency for the second time in our history as member states of the European Union. So more confident than the first time. I think we have prepared quite well in the framework of our trio team with Denmark and Poland to continue. It's not easy to set the priorities because you need to wait until the very last moment to see what the inherited agenda is. And our priorities will be officially announced on Sunday. But nevertheless, we have identified the strengthening of EU's competitiveness, as you mentioned, and our strategic autonomy as quite central horizontal priorities for the next 6 months. And of course, in this context, our presidency will try to link enlargement policy with the broader EU policy reforms with a view to make sure that the candidate countries are progressively integrated into key EU policies even before accession. I think this is important. Indeed, we're assuming the presidency at a particularly critical juncture for the European Union, and especially when it comes to enlargement and the internal reform of the Union, which also must advance in parallel and in a mutually reinforcing manner. A key priority for us will be to keep enlargement high in the agenda, but firmly anchored in merit and credibility, while maintaining, of course, momentum where progress is registered. And we have seen the examples, as Ado mentioned, about Montenegro progress and Albania. We need to make sure that we will support this progress and sustain this pace of reform, so we can reach the point of no return. And Pernille referred to the setting up of the ad hoc group for the accession treaty for Montenegro. I think that will be the moment of no return, because it will signify that we are already preparing in practice for the actual accession. So this is something that will be important. At the same time, our presidency will try to preserve the inclusiveness of the enlargement process, ensuring that all partners from Ukraine to the Western Balkan region, even Turkey, of course, because despite our bilateral issues, Cyprus is a supporter of Turkey's accession, provided that all conditions, of course, are met. I'm just trying to say that there will be no discrimination when it comes to presidency. We will act as an honest broker. We did that also back in 2012. So this region will be a priority for us, and we will try to maintain the momentum that has been created and that my colleagues referred to. We will put also some strong emphasis on preparing the Union itself for enlargement. So we will wait for the Commission's proposals, of course, and then we will work on that. We will advance the discussions about possible internal EU reforms, with a view to improve or enhance our decision-making efficiency, budgetary sustainability, especially in areas such as competitiveness, cohesion, agriculture, and security. what I'm trying to say is that enlargement cannot be treated in isolation. It is, of course, interlinked with other policy areas of the EU, and that is what we will try to do. And, of course, make sure that we're ready to absorb new members. So this will be the way my country will be looking at this policy, and we come from a point, a geographical point, which is quite, let's say, turbulent, Eastern Mediterranean. So we have a lot of experience as to how to deal with challenges and tensions, security concerns, need for stability, and of course the need for maintaining good neighborly relations. So this will be, let's say, the guiding principles behind our approach also for this particular geographical region, the Western Balkans. And we will, as I said, we understand the strategic importance of maintaining stability, and this is what we will try to do, like send the message that if there is the necessary goodwill on behalf of all partners in the region, then we can overcome major challenges that are hindering some of the accession process of some of the countries in the region. Of course, we will encourage closer alignment of all countries with CFSP. This is important, especially in the times that we are going through. And to conclude, I would just say that we will act as an honest broker. As a bridge builder, we want to advance all the inherited agenda that we will get. We want to strengthen the Union's internal readiness, of course. We are aware of the geopolitical challenges, and I think with our collective work and effort based on the very solid foundations that the previous presidency is leaving for us, we will be able to advance the open files even further in the next 6 months.
Thank you very much. We wish you good luck with your upcoming presidency. It's certainly not going to be easy, but in particular being an ambassador to Serbia, which is a country that has been facing multiple hurdles on its EU accession path. But nonetheless, I'd like to reassure you that you can always count on CEP, on civil society in general, and we really hope to have close cooperation during your presidency. Now moving to Bojana. We referred to your case at the beginning. Maybe on a slightly light note, I wanted to ask you, how does it feel being a domestic obstructor? Maybe I like to say you should wear it as a badge of honor, because when tabloids say that to you, it means you're doing something good. You're really pushing EU enlargement forward from your perspective. So my question to you is, on a more serious note now, what has been the role of your position, of your institution, the institution you're chairing, the National Convention, the past 6 months? How would you describe the cooperation with the EU and, your assessment of how we ended up where we are today? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know that I'm so powerful as some tabloids actually see that. So for the beginning, thank you very much for inviting me. And also my congratulations to Danish ambassador and Cyprus ambassador for their roles in these very challenging times for not only us in Serbia, but in general Europe. And I really believe that next year will be even more intensive in some dynamics and very significant for all of us here in the Western Balkans from the perspective of enlargement policy. So regarding the previous period and regarding your question, I just want to remind that by the beginning of this year, National Convention actually made decision to leave all processes with political actors here in Serbia. There were several reasons for that, but two main. One reason was related with the fact that we didn't want to share responsibility for the process where although we had institutional role, we were not recognized as equal actor. So you know how many times not only a national convention but also other civil society organizations were frustrated about just formal participation in different processes just for the ticks, the boxes for the government. And then when we had situation that hundreds of thousands Serbian citizens are protesting for the things that actually had been already fulfilled as obligations of Serbia within a session process, we said that, okay, something is not okay. If we are trying to have process, to contribute the process, and there is no result, and now instead of dealing corruption, rule of law, and democracy in institutions, now we have people in the streets who are asking that. Nevertheless, during the summer and after strong actually commitment and involvement of different EU actors, and really I have to say that sometimes I thought that for EU actors reform processes in Serbia were more important than for some political actors here in Serbia. We decided to have a kind of let's say that limited involvement, but in crucial processes where there is strong involvement of EU as well. And despite all campaigns against civil society organizations by the beginning of the year, including members of National Convention, that some of them finished with involving police and other forces actors here in Serbia. We recognize the momentum and we wanted to demonstrate responsibility, but with a strong support of different EU actors. And during the summer, we decided to be part of a committee for monitoring of reform agenda. So for the first time, maybe, I thought that now we will have different dynamics. That was for the first time that we as civil society asked very formal but different role and guarantees that our opinion and our actually contribution can be recognized. But when we got reality test, actually we got something different. So you know that civil society organizations, but also some other actors were involved in implementation of some concrete activities of reform agenda. I think a law on waters registered and also a REM process. And now what we got is actually transfer responsibility, not only for the lack of real reform activities, but also for not opening cluster 3, for stocking EU integration process, etc., etc. So this is not for the first time that even civil society and me personally are subjects of such campaigns. But the problem is that if this is intention, if this is a trend, we saw that by the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and we all know what we can expect in the future. So in those conditions, the question is, how can we continue together to work in any kind of reform steps? So what I can say, and what is my personal perception now after this last month and the whole year, actually there is strong intention of the government, of the authorities, to push us to leave all the processes. So the game is that formally they have to have us there, but they will do everything to make such atmosphere and the environment to push us to leave. So far, National Convention will not leave existing processes where we are engaged together with the EU. And from this perspective, it's crucial to have your support, not only you that are here, and I know that all of you are very well aware of the whole situation, but also other actors from the Commission. And if EU actually is really committed to reform processes in Serbia, then the strongest message for Serbian citizens will be that they want to protect the space for real inclusive dialogue. So that is actually the main message related to this last few months.
Thank you, Bojana. And I think those who are trying to push you away, push us away, don't realize that the more they push, the more we are keen on staying. So I really wish to send a message that we will persist, and thank you for your efforts. And we hope that in the next 6 months we'll succeed in creating a more fertile ground for civil society together. With that said, I'd like to refer to my colleague now, Milena, with whom I've had the pleasure to really jointly experience all the enlargement developments throughout the past years, but also in particular in the past 6 months. We've been together at the Enlargement Forum in Brussels. And I remember talking to you 6 months ago at the event. We were discussing the shocking speed of Albania, how it has managed to come next to Serbia when it comes to the amount of clusters that it has opened. But now we've seen Albania surpassing Serbia with the fact that Albania has opened all clusters, and now there are talks that it might start even closing chapters during the Cypriot presidency. In the meantime, we've seen Ursula von der Leyen visiting our president, having talks with von der Leyen, Costa, but at the end, the cancellation of the Brussels visit. So my question to you is, how do you interpret all the signals the EU has been sending to Serbia in the past months during these turbulent times? And moreover, given that you're heading the intersectoral group of the National Convention on the EU that is supposed to monitor the implementation of the reform agenda, how do you interpret the fact, would you share with the audience your view, how do you interpret the fact that no funds besides the pre-financing have been wired to Serbia, despite the fact that Serbia has applied and even argued that it has completed many of the reform agenda steps? So thank you.
First of all, I want to swap places with you. Strahinja has a good reason to sit
No,
today.
it's okay.
No, come on, please.
Sure, can't.
No problem for me to stand, and you're in pain, so no reason for that. Okay.
Thank you very much.
So,
No, it's a leg issue. It's a leg issue, so thank you, yes.
Strahinja is the master of asking long questions, so that by the end of the question, I don't know anymore what he asked first. But I will start from the reform agenda, because this has occupied most of my time, actually. I mean, surprisingly a lot of time since I took up this role of the coordinator of the new intersectoral working group in the convent that monitors Serbia's reform agenda. And I'm really grateful to the EU ambassador here in Serbia, but also to the colleagues from the European Commission for supporting the request of the Serbian civil society to be granted a full membership role in this committee for the monitoring of the Reform and Growth Facility. This is not the case in other countries in the region, at least not so far. So in other countries, civil society is present as participants, but they don't have a permanent member. And we are an outlier there, probably because we are an outlier in some other things, which are not so positive. So with Bojana, we always joke that in Serbia we have the best structure for civil society engagement in the EU accession process, in the monitoring of the EU accession activities, but so far the worst, well, almost the worst situation when it comes to actual progress and implementation of the reforms. Now, this monitoring committee for the Reform and Growth Facility, I think it was envisaged to function as, just as another one of these standard committees which meet once a year, and then progress is discussed, and there is a report, and everybody goes home, and, they meet maybe in 6 months or in a year's time. We decided to make maximum use of our role in this monitoring committee. And I will here refer to the best quote I've heard today that Ambassador von Becker had said, is that when CSOs criticize the actions and practices of the government, they're not sabotaging the process, as we have been accused, but we are trying to assure the quality of those reforms. So we cannot implement reforms ourselves. We can only contribute, but we can also point out the situations, and we have seen a number of such situations where reforms are done under the pretext of advancing the EU accession process, but where we actually see that in parallel with those reforms, other activities are done that are actually taking us farther from the EU standards. This is basically why we are in this committee. We want to make sure that Serbian citizens understand what is a reform, what is a true reform, and what is just a simulation of the reform. We want to make sure that this dialogue between the European Commission or the European Union and the Serbian government is based on facts and not on some beautiful statements which are very far from reality and which we have had a chance to observe, for example, in the annual report that our government produced on the Reform and Growth Facility for the year 2024. A lot of statements, very generic, claims that Serbia has made advances in the, for example, fight against corruption, when we as Serbian citizens see on an everyday basis how much the corruption has taken roots in this society and in this system at all levels. This is not where a country that has been a candidate for EU membership for, well, longer than I can actually recall now when it was that we got the candidate status, but we have been negotiating EU membership for more than 10 years. Serbia is today the country that has joined the group of Turkey and Georgia in having the regression or the backsliding in the area of rule of law recognized by the Commission. And mind you, it is very difficult for the Commission to recognize backsliding in its reports. Because there is always, a little bit of something done here, an action plan adopted, maybe a law adopted, but on the other hand, there are many actions which actually go in the opposite direction. So it's always very difficult to find this balance. We've seen in the report also, for example, that Serbia has received a limited progress grade mark assessment in the area of fight against corruption, which was heavily criticized by many civil society organizations, because basically the only positive thing that this report states in the area of fight against corruption is the adoption of the strategy and action plan, which was not even a full action plan, but it was adopted almost retroactively, and it has already expired. So I think that this goes on to show and to prove that the European Commission is really trying to be fair, that it is really trying to take everything into account, and that even when we think that maybe these marks or these assessments are somehow incorrect or unfair, there is always the other side of the story. So just like we are in a sandwich between maybe criticism from some of the organizations in the civil society who would like us completely to stop cooperation with the government at all levels, And on the other hand, of course, the government representatives, I think the Commission is most of the time in the same situation. But precisely this reason of ensuring that we maintain a certain possibility to not only influence the reforms, but to get the information, to be aware of what is going on in the reform processes on a daily basis, because the government institutions do not communicate those issues. They do not publish information about the actual activities that have been done or haven't been done. This is precisely why we are in this monitoring committee, because we want to make sure that we also have the information, and information is something that we have been insisting quite a lot, to make sure that all the reports and all the assessments that our government is sending to the Commission based on what they're doing for the implementation of the reform agenda, we want to make sure that we also see what they are telling to the Commission, so that we can take corrective action, so that we can say, I'm sorry, but electing 8 out of 9 members of the RAM Council just won't do the trick. It just won't be enough. So why is Serbia now the laggard, well, one of the laggards in the region in terms of actually withdrawing money from the Reform and Growth Facility, is precisely this lack of crucial reforms. And of course, while some of the fundamental reforms are included in the reform agenda as part of the specific reform activities or so-called reform steps, there is a general precondition in the regulation which regulates the Reform and Growth Facility, that every country will be assessed for every payment from the Reform and Growth Facility, not only on whether they have achieved certain steps, but that they will also have to kind of ensure adequate progress in the area, an adequate situation in the area of rule of law and democracy. For Serbia and Kosovo, there is the additional precondition related to the dialogue between Kosovo, Belgrade and Pristina. I don't think that this per se alone would be a problem for the Commission to release the funds, obviously because for political reasons in both countries there has been a stalling of the dialogue, but at least if the situation in the area of rule of law and democracy was somewhat better, the Commission would be able to disburse the money. They are actually eager to disburse the money, and they're not eager to transfer the money to other countries, because it is obvious that Serbia, as the biggest country in the region, is not only has the right to access those funds, but there is actually a willingness to support the socioeconomic development of Serbia and helping it close the socioeconomic gap between Serbia and the EU. So I think that there is a lot of willingness, that we have a lot of good tools, we are creating a lot of good systems. All we need now is somehow to either move this huge elephant in the room, or to change it.
Thank you very much, Milena. I think you've made your message very clear and pronounced, and I hope that as we have so many embassies in the audience, that they will take those messages to their capitals and really make sure that the enlargement stays merit-based, and that the Reform and Growth Facility really pays attention also to the preconditions as set by the regulation. So with that said, I'd like to move to the second round of questions, and once that round is over, the audience will have the time to ask, of course, questions and comments. But to be quick, I'd like to ask for the audience, for the speakers to maybe limit their speeches up to 5 minutes or less. I want to be polite with the ambassadors, but I would like just I have a really burning question to you, Ambassador, and then maybe we can see how it goes. Ambassador, coming to you again, I mentioned the Enlargement Forum. That was the highlight of the new commission. Marta Kos really made sure to ensure this event really stands out, and we were grateful that they invited civil society from the Balkans as well. Over there we could hear that the Commission is preparing the pre-enlargement reviews. They were postponed from November to December, January. Now their talks, they might be published in March and April. But whenever they're published, what can we expect from those to really make sure that as Montenegro, Albania, Moldova, and other countries are approaching the Union, that the Union itself becomes ready for new members? So my question to you is, what can you reveal about those pre-enlargement reviews, and maybe illuminate us a little bit more on what Marta Kos meant about the discussion on probation periods, safeguard clauses, preventing new Trojan horses with the new accession acts, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief, and I'm afraid I will have to be rude and leave already in 5 minutes. I have a meeting with the Minister of Justice, I can't miss. Just a few things. First of all, I felt even more rude not starting with congratulating Pernille and the Danish presidency for a job excellent done, and also wishing Andreas and Cyprus best of luck in the months to come. Just one remark to comment what Bojana said about, the importance that the Commission and Brussels understands the importance of the civil society. I mean, it's not only here that you have, with the EU delegation, but also with, I know, EU colleagues, a very clear understanding on the important role that you and your colleagues are playing. I think the fact that when President von der Leyen was here, she spent almost as much time talking to you as she did talking to government and authorities. I think that very much sort of demonstrated how important your role is to the European Commission. And then on what Milenka said, I completely agree with your assessment when it comes to the RJF. There is a clear risk that money could be lost. It's all about, and I think that's what makes this the RJF such a powerful tool, because it's really based on the reform implementation. If you don't deliver on reforms, you will lose money. You're absolutely right. We do not want to have those money to be sent to Brussels. We want to pay out those money. But it needs to be a very sort of fair and accurate process where reforms need to be clear and tangible. On your question, when it comes to sort of the preparations, I mean, first of all, just a remark on what Commissioner Koss said about not accepting new Trojan horses into the EU. I'm not exactly sure what she meant, but I think she was more looking to the past than looking to future candidate countries. Now, obviously, the fact that the EU is so intensively working on preparing the European Union for receiving new member states, I think is the clearest message to citizens in the Western Balkans, including in Serbia, that we're serious about this process, that we really want to see a democratic Serbia inside the European Union, and that is why we're doing this exercise. So this pre-enlargement review will look at, different policies, EU policies, how they will need to be adjusted when accepting new member states. It will also look at decision-making formats and how decisions are being made with an enlarged European Union. It will also look at budgetary consequences, and it will look at every policy field as well, what consequences it will have when we will be more member states around the table. And I think, there's a broad consensus among member states that when we widen European Union, we also simultaneously need to deepen the cooperation. Now, there are different views, on the discussion on what this entails, and I think this discussion will continue. The Commission has floated the idea that qualified majority should be used more often when it comes to an enlargement process. For example, when opening new clusters, to apply QMV there. I think the start and the end of the enlargement process will always be based on unanimity. So basically, to grant the country candidate status and start negotiations will require unanimity, and to accept the country, to sign the accession treaty will also require unanimity. But everything in between is subject to discussion. And I think that this discussion will intensify in the months to come, not least after the pre-enlargement review has been presented.
And as discussions intensify, you can count on us because we've been generating many of those ideas that we see them being implemented in Brussels. And I know you have to leave a bit early, I would like to thank you once again for joining us. I hope you finished watching the rest of the video on YouTube. It will be published. But we hope to definitely stay in touch. You can count on us.
Yes.
We have for the ambassador a question quickly.
Yeah, I mean, only the panel, because I'm also leaving. I have the meeting on the other side also with Minister.
If you want 1 minute intervention, because other people might want to intervene briefly. Yes.
Because I'll be leaving, I'm not
Okay, okay.
So if I may get that. I want to go. Just briefly, I hope that we are also having media with us, because it's crucial to follow the whole process and the whole all the things that we'll be talking today. First, to start with the support to the civil society as a newly elected commissioner, we will do it also publicly. Also the support to Maja Stojanovic, who yesterday got the award, the Franco-German award. It's a really honor, I think, for the civil society. I think this is the first. As someone who is in the civil society, fought for so many years on the reform agenda, chairing the Chapter 23 for, I think, 6 or 7 years, while we were fighting to really be on a table. And I think it's really good that we have that, you have the position within the civil society to be on a table with the government. I think we really have to take the responsibility, both as persons. I'm also taking a bit of responsibility as accepting the position of the Commissioner for the Protection of Equality. It is harsh time, so just to give some kind of messages on that. There is also there are threats coming also to civil society. We will be monitoring as a Commissioner for the Protection of Equality. This is something we are deeply concerned of. There is a staff, we are 50 people who were working for 15 years, building the capacity to react and to provide equality to that. Just to end, we are waiting for Sunday to see what will the priorities of Cyprus. I had a little bit longer, points, but I would like to take care of your time. But the Commissioner's Office and I believe all the parts of that will be independent institutions that will be supportive of the process, you should use as much as possible. I'm sorry that today we don't have anyone from the government. I think they should be also sitting in those first row, and I would like really to see if they were invited. I hope they were, and to push them to be on the table. There is no other way but dialogue. You know how much of pressure there were. Also during my candidacy, I had all of the different threats coming and so on, and I submitted some of the complaints to the prosecutor's office. But in that area, I think we really have to work together to find a way out, and because we are all working in the interest of citizens, not in the interest of me as a commissioner or you as leaders of the organization, nor the ministers or anyone from the government or the president's office. Thank you, and I do not have too many questions. I think we'll have a discussion, but this is the open way to give the support to the civil
Thanks
society.
for the intervention, and we wish you good luck in your new position. Now
we can expect your public statement about the threats on civil society and media.
As I said, this is the order for the Commissioner Office that is there.
I think that would be very valuable to publicly address the threats both against civic initiative and national convention. Thank you.
And Vuksvich.
Sorry?
And Vuksvich.
Yeah. Yes.
Now that we agree on that, just revert back to the title of today's event. Milena, briefly, we see, as I mentioned, many of our ideas getting streamlined in Brussels. Ambassador mentioned budgetary implications. You can leave. Thank you very much. Please, can you sit here now? We've heard from the ambassador. We've heard from the ambassador about policy reviews, budgetary implications. So please unpack the latest things you've been cooking when it comes to cost of enlargement and analyzing the possibilities of new generation of accession acts.
Yeah, so I think there are three things that CEP is mostly focused on at this point. One is related to our proposals on the safeguard clauses and the application of safeguard clauses in the new generation of EU accession acts. I dare to call them the new generation of accession acts because I really think that starting from Montenegro's accession act, it will be somewhat different than the ones we've seen in the past. And this is because the EU is obviously learning from experience and learning also from especially from the failures and problems that came after the previous enlargement. So basically what we propose there is that these safeguard clauses, which basically serve to protect the EU against backsliding in specific areas after accession to the EU. This is particularly important in areas where there is not a lot of acquis, where the EU doesn't have very well developed internal protection mechanisms, and here I specifically mean rule of law and the functioning of democracy. So basically what we've proposed is that these safeguard clauses should be, first of all, prolonged to a period of up to 10 years after accession, so that they can be triggered in the period of 10 years, up to 10 years after accession. In the past, they were only 3 years. The other thing is to broaden them in scope. So, for example, in the past enlargements, in the area of rule of law, there were just specific areas of the rule of law which were subject to these safeguard clauses. We believe that this should be now widened to the entire rule of law area. The other important proposal that we made is related to advancing one of the important, we believe, important elements of gradual integration approach. We see now that the new conclusions on enlargement again invite the Commission to make new proposals. I don't know if the Commission will now dare to take this proposal forward because it concerns the functioning of the Council, but we have been proposing over and over again that the candidates should be granted merit-based advanced access to the meetings of the Council. Without going into details, the idea is basically that countries that open clusters can start attending working group meetings in the Council in those areas where they have opened the negotiations, and once they close the chapters, that they can get a higher level of participation, meaning up to the ministerial level in all of those areas where they have closed accession negotiations. So this is very simplified. You can go to our website and find the paper which goes into detail. So far the Council has been pretty resistant to opening, especially merit-based, because there have been some informal meetings and invitations to the candidates, but when they invite everybody. So we believe that there should be a merit-based approach there, and that this kind of access to one of the key institutions for a future member state, where actually the national positions are presented and discussed, that this is extremely important in order to start first of all, socializing these countries' representatives and officials more closely with the EU accession, with the EU membership functioning and framework. And this will also help the new entrants more gradually create and develop the capacities to participate in so many working groups, so many committees, so many fora that can be quite challenging. And we've seen in previous enlargements that new member states have had the problems in actually filling all of those committees because of the limited capacities. And just imagine what this can mean for Montenegro. So the sooner you start inviting them, and I'm referring here to the Cypriot ambassador because this is something that the presidency should actually start, and other Troika members should support. I think that this is really crucial in this stage. And the third important, well, it's not a proposal, but it's actually a finding of an important new study that we've done with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation here in Belgrade, is related to the detailed simulation of the costs of Western Balkan enlargement to the EU, where we actually, based on the current MFF, analyzed all of the headings and came up with pretty precise estimates of how much Western Balkan accession would cost the EU taxpayers. And I can give you good news that the cost is really, really low. It's a bit more than €5.30 gross per year. So basically, one of our key messages is that enlargement can fit into a cup of coffee. When it comes to Montenegro, the cost is merely 27 cents per year on an ordinary citizen, so I don't know even what you can buy for 27 cents anymore, like a head of lettuce or something. So really, finances, budget is not an issue, especially when it comes to the Western Balkans. Ukraine is a bit of a specific case, but I always say Ukraine belongs in a different basket because the amount of support and money that the EU is already investing in Ukraine completely gets rid again of this financial aspect. So Again, it's down to reforms now. It's down to us in the Western Balkans to persuade the EU member states and the institutions that we actually deserve to be in that club and that we will not become the new Trojan horse in the community.
Thank you, Milena. All the things that you've mentioned sound clear and crystal clear, but people should know this is months and months of work, maybe years of work. And we hope that this resonates among the audience and that they will spread the message, because these points are very important. And with that said, I'd like to refer to Cypriot ambassador. We know how important presidency is, and your presidency is coming at a time when, as Milena mentioned, there are institutional debates, financial debates on how to make the enlargement work without endangering the EU itself, to remain functional while it enlarges. So how do you foresee the role of your presidency in the next 6 months from that perspective? And do you expect Serbia to realize that it also needs to make itself ready for enlargement as well? Thanks.
Thank you. Indeed, I think the issues that you raised, dear Strahinja, go to the very heart of the current enlargement debate. And this is definitely a debate that we wish to carry forward in the relevant council bodies in the next 6 months. These will be central issues in our work. On the MFF, now we have the first negotiating box prepared by the Danish presidency. Again, congratulations. This is a solid foundation for our work. I think we need to ensure that the next MFF will reflect in a very credible way the Union's commitment, first of all, to enlargement by embracing our readiness into the budget itself. So this has to be quite clear, not as a hypothetical scenario, but as a realistic assumption. So we need to include adequate provisions for strengthening the pre-accession instruments, so the candidate countries can progressively align with our EU standards and policies before accession. The second is that the Council will need to strike a very careful balance between solidarity and responsibility. So on the one hand, safeguarding the interest of the current beneficiaries, while ensuring that the Union's financial architecture and stability is not endangered, and that we are ready to absorb new members without undermining competitiveness or cohesion. Then third, we will put a strong focus on linking funding more closely to performance, so that the budgetary support, both pre and post accession, clearly rewards reforms. And on the debate that Andreas referred to in anticipation of the Commission's pre-enlargement policy reviews proposals, I would like to say that the Presidency will, of course, start the debate in the Council. We need to see first what the proposals will be. I think that this debate is pertinent, but we need to have a structured and a pragmatic discussion on how to make progress more predictable, more credible, and less vulnerable to unilateral issues that have affected the accession process. Of course, we need to fully respect the existing treaties and the role of the Council and the Member States. After all, this is still an intergovernmental process, and this has to be protected. We have the ambition of positively contributing to this debate as a country that has been a staunch supporter of enlargement, supporting the merit and the rules. So we will try to promote more clarity into the enlargement arrangement as a whole, more transparent decision-making processes, just to make sure that the rules of this game are clearly understood primarily by the candidate countries, because it's up to them to deliver on what we expect. So yes, we support simplification of the process, but this will not mean that we will lower our standards. It should mean clarifying the path, less ambiguity, and ensuring that the political decisions are grounded on objective assessments. As regards Serbia, that you referred to, we think that both here in Belgrade and in Brussels, there is this growing perception that it's now a game of proving our readiness. So the same way that the European Union is preparing, as Andreas said, the same way, in the same way, Serbia must also demonstrate and continue to make itself fit for membership. This means that we need to see accelerated reforms, primarily rule of law, etc., the areas that the Commission has identified, but also alignment with the CFSP. I think these are crucial points. It means that we need to see in practice that accession is a strategic choice that is pursued in practice. For us, as presidency, but also nationally, we will make sure that the door is open, of course. This has to be clear, and it will, progress will, of course, will be possible and tangible, provided that we see the necessary will, the reforms, and this strategic clarity that I referred to. I think a reformed but credible enlargement process can succeed only if both sides move forward with the same seriousness and commitment for this purpose.
Thank you very much. As we're running out of time, I'd like to ask Bojana, of course, for a short reflection when it comes to a forward-looking perspective. Do you really expect Serbia to realize it also needs to become fit for enlargement? Well, do you expect the non-paper, 2024 non-paper, to feature again? And what progress could we expect on that front as well moving forward? And maybe even reflect on whether you expect Serbia to show up in Montenegro for the next EU Western Balkan Summit?
Yeah, case of Montenegro, but also Albania, I think is very relevant for our society, and I think that we saw so many reactions among different actors, and I think it's actually very good that different actors and citizens now are recognizing that actually that the European path actually has an end, because the level of trust in enlargement process during the previous period, I mean before the war started in Ukraine, was at a very low level. Still, we can hear different voices here that although there is a recognition of Montenegro's efforts, that will use somehow sabotage membership of Montenegro, and I really hope that it will not happen, not only because of Montenegro, but because of the general credibility of enlargement process and for the trust in the whole region. So in that regard, I think that there is also that momentum of competitiveness among Serbian political actors, and I think that this kind of not so rational decision about participation in Western Balkan Summit is somehow related, knowing the Serbian president, definitely it is related with the fact that there is now different and another star shining within enlargement perspective. So I think it is useful also for the perspective of citizens, because now they can also push a real political willingness and responsibility for the future of Serbian accession process. In reality, what we can expect, I'm not so optimistic for the next year, as that will be definitely electoral year, and knowing and having experience from the previous period, we can expect actually so many and more, maybe some populistic manners and activities with the aim to influence voters on elections. And if political actors recognize that there is a kind of sentiment among citizens that is more pro-EU, then they will react in that manner and will be more committed in some reform processes. But otherwise, we can expect what we had during the previous period. And once again, that is the reason why it's so important that EU is demonstrating full commitment, especially for Montenegro, for Albania in this region, because now people can recognize that as a real and very strong sign that the European future for the region can be achieved.
Thank you, Bojana. In particular, the last point you made, I keep repeating it over and over. I think that's the message our citizens need to hear for sure. And my last question for today is directed to Ambassador Kartel. It's related to Cluster 3. We've heard the pace of reforms that has been lacking. European Parliament, the Council, the Commission has been quite vocal in criticism of Serbia, in particular for the past 6 months. So my question to you is, how difficult was it for Denmark to defend its original position that Serbia should have its Cluster 3 opened? And to end on a more positive note, what message would you give to your Cypriot successor for assuming the presidency? Piece of advice.
Well, thank you, and thank you again for a good question. I think for us, the focus has been on making sure that enlargement was on. And this has not been focused on a country, this has been focused on a process. And you're absolutely right, we as a country decided that we felt that Serbia was ready to open Cluster 3 last year. And then we have felt that in order to get the enlargement process, enlargement is not about a cluster, or for that sake, it's not about one country. It's about Europe's security. It's about Europe's future. And therefore, for us, it has been about that the whole process needed to be credible. And I really feel sitting here and hearing the conversation, and as you said yourself, when we came into the presidency and we were asked whether enlargement was something we would deal with. Well, I think the discussion today confirms that this discussion is a very different place, and I think that's actually exactly where we need to be. Yes, there's more work to be done in this country, as there are in all the countries. I think it is one of the things that this country has that not all countries, not all candidate countries has, is an incredibly strong civil society. And I'm actually sorry for some of the other candidate countries that they don't have the same caliber of civil society with them on that travel, because it is such an important aspect of making sure that the enlargement process becomes as qualitatively strong as it needs to be. So kudos to civil society here for being as strong as you are and stay the course. And I love that what you say is that you threaten to stay in the process rather than leaving it. Stay that and reach out so that we can be sure the framework conditions allow you to do that. Because if you leave the process will not move forward, no question about it. That said, there's nobody in this process that has veto power over it, but it does require the continued and steady work from your side too, to make this happen. And there's so much at stake in Serbia, but in the whole continent to make this happen. My advice to my Cypriot colleague, to Andreas, is just to stay the course and to continue to stay engaged, as I know you will. I think the engagement and the discussions that we have been allowed to be a part of, having held the presidency, have been really motivating, really encouraging. I think this is our 26th panel discussion, so it's more than one a week. And I think that has actually been really, it's been a lot of fun, but it's also been really encouraging to have an opportunity to engage as broadly on this issue. And I've carried one message, and that is enlargement is on. And I hope you will continue to do that. So thank you.
Enlargement is on. I think it deserves a round of applause. With that said, I know you've been eagerly waiting for the question and comment section. It starts now. Do we have any hands in the air, please? Don't be shy. Yes, please. We can collect a couple of questions and comments, or yeah.
I have just a comment.
And please introduce yourself.
So,
yes.
Yes, I'm Elona Didi from the Albanian embassy here in Belgrade, and I take this opportunity to thank the organizers for this timely discussion and also for highlighting Albania as part of this positive momentum on enlargement. We see this not as an exception, but as proof that when the process is credible, is merit-based and politically supported, reforms deliver results. So since I have the microphone, I would like to say thank you to the Danish presidency for its constructive engagement and contribution on advancing the enlargement agenda. And you know, this kind of engagement is very important for countries like Albania. And as we look ahead, I would say that we hope that the Cypriot presidency will further consolidate this progress by providing continuity and predictability to the candidate countries that deliver on results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? A hand over there.
Thank you, everyone, for this wonderful discussion. I'm Georgi from European Policy Center, and I have a question regarding enlargement. I was hoping that His Excellency von Beckeret would be also here, but last week we saw that the European Union was able to find a solution to unblock Ukraine's EU accession. But we still see that Macedonia is still blocked by one country. So did the Danish presidency have North Macedonia in mind when making, let's call it, making a solution for Ukraine? And would the Cypriot presidency try to unblock North Macedonia in a similar manner?
Thank you very much. Indeed, this is related to front loading, as you managed to unlock the technical negotiations. Maybe, would you like to refer to that as well?
I would be very happy to answer that, and it would echo what I have been saying. Our focus has been to get enlargement back on. And to get enlargement back on meant to get the process around Ukraine moving. So for us, the issue has been to find ways of unblocking blocks for enlargement so that we could actually credibly say enlargement is back on. It's not about any particular other country, it's about the enlargement process as such. And it was necessary to find a way of unblocking that so that had we sat here today and Ukraine had not moved forward informally in the enlargement process, the discussion today would have been a very different one, one that would be a lot more of concern for Europe's security and for this region too. So for us, the important thing was to unblock what blocked the enlargement process rather than a particular country.
If I may add, regarding Albania, please don't expect just a hope. You should be assured that our presidency, as I said in my original interventions, will carry on with the same enthusiasm and commitment as our Danish colleagues have. And based on individual progress achieved, the Council will advance, of course, the work. So you should have no doubt about that. And this has been confirmed at the highest political level, also bilaterally. Regarding our plans for North Macedonia, I think the conclusions adopted by the presidency a few days ago on enlargement clearly provide the solution there. There is certain things that need to be done by the candidate country, but you should also be certain that the presidency will exhaust all margins of work with a view to overcome this issue so we can advance with this country as well in line with the existing requirements and conditionality. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, ambassadors. Over there, one. And we can wrap it up after.
afterwards.
First of all, thank you very much for the wonderful discussion. My name is Elvir. I'm a trainee at the EU delegation. And I have a short question for the Cypriot ambassador. So Cyprus joined European Union despite having territorial issues. What advice would you give to the Serbian society and, like, in Serbia in general, with its joining, as well as having the problem with the territorial integrity?
Yes, thank you. Sensitive question. Indeed, my country remains divided because of the continuing presence of Turkish troops in the northern part of the island since 1974. Nevertheless, Cyprus joined, as you mentioned, the European Union in 2004 as a whole, as one integral geographical territory. And the Council unanimously had decided then to suspend the application of the EU law in the occupied part because the government does not exercise effective control. So there is inability of the government to enforce EU law in that area. That was a legal necessity that was decided at the time, and an effective way to advance with Cyprus's membership and not keep it hostage of a situation that didn't depend on Cyprus itself. Now, I don't think it would be appropriate to make any similarities with the case of Serbia. I think Serbia has submitted its application to join the European Union. There is a negotiating framework that was agreed back in 2012, and that document mutually agreed by the EU and Serbia sets the rules of the game. What is expected from Serbia is very clear, and that is written in that framework. So I think it is against that we will measure progress made in the accession process. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. We can catch up maybe later if you would like to talk in private. In any case, I'd like to thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank the guests for their wonderful interventions. I'd like to remind that you should expect us to resend you another invitation in 6 months' time to mark the handover of presidency from Cyprus to Ireland. We would have Irish ambassador at that time joining us. And we should all keep in mind the key message of this event. Enlargement is on. We hope our government as well seizes the opportunity, realizes how important it is to engage in dialogue with the EU, and that they won't miss the EU Western Balkan Summit in Montenegro. So until then, I hope you have enjoyed this debate. If you would like to rewatch the entire thing, you will be able to find it on our YouTube channel. And I would also like to thank your house for giving us another opportunity to be at this wonderful premises, and I'd like to thank for the technical support of theirs as well. Thank you once again, and staying in touch. Goodbye. Happy holidays, yes.